placebo was better for depression. They knew it actually increased it. This is not just about money making. Like Bayer knowingly shipping out AIDS-tainted blood. This is some type of death cult depopulation agenda. And I covered their documents earlier. I'm sorry I'm ranting, but you've got the floor. Just break it down.
Well, I can't break it down any further than what you just did, and did an excellent job of that, because each one of those elements is a particular truth. How could they be so negligent? They can't. They can't be that negligent. It has to have an element of intent. And I believe that what we're looking at now, I mean, there was a report that came out, I believe it was yesterday, that says that now autism is 1 in every 110 children. And Alex, I think this is a really important point I want to make to all of your many listeners. For all of you out there that are trying to eat organic, bring up your kids non-vaccinated, and to have them do the best that you possibly can to keep them healthy, this is the world that your children are going to inherit. You parents that are doing a great job of educating yourself and not vaccinating your kids and not giving them drugs and feeding organic and getting them exercise and plenty of vitamin D and all of those good health things, your children are inheriting a world of 1 in 10 of the people around them have autism. They're not going to be able to have a job. Many of them can't speak. Many of them, by the time they get to be teenagers and even adults, will not be potty trained. Where is the money going to come from to handle that? Where is it? So we can never stop trying to educate parents against the horrors and the potential problems that are associated with vaccines. We just can't ever stop doing it, Alex, ever.
Well, you're right. You know, in my life, 20 years has gone by like that. 35 years has gone by like that. 37 years. It seems like yesterday I was a little child. And now I see my children rocketing up, like shooting up like little weeds. And I see it. I mean, I go to stores. I see children. And when I go to a homeschool event with a couple hundred homeschoolers, their eyes have that old sparkle, like old, black and white films. They're awake. They're smart. I go to a public school event. I go to restaurants, even in nicer areas of town. The children look like neurological zombies. I mean, most of them, they are killing us. And we try to eat almost completely organic with our children, except we're on the road. And I'm trying to tell my wife, and she's telling me we've got to work together to make sure we protect them, because even if we're going to sometimes be lazy and hurt ourselves, we can't do it. And they have the Big Cornucopia Foundation, as you know, came out 2 weeks ago, studied hundreds of cereal makers, just cereal, and found that Kraft and all these big companies have all these other front companies, and it's even more GMO, and then they're saying it's not, and certifying it and calling it natural. And it's in Whole Foods, it's everywhere. And then these same companies have seed vaults and now arc vaults with the DNA of all the animals. They know what they're doing. I mean, I did a video today that's posted at Infowars.com titled Alien Genetic Takeover, the End of Humanity. And I explain it isn't aliens from 1 trillion miles away. It is alien in the development of this planet. You're a doctor. Please speak to this. Give us your view. To splice animal, plant, DNA, sometimes stack 100 different species of 5 or 6 different families together. And then in all the GMO trials in 3 generations, totally sterile guinea pigs, all of this stuff, addled, autistic type, things. I mean, all the studies are there. And when you realize that an alien from 1 trillion miles away couldn't come to this planet and really wreck things more than these biotech, big pharma are doing, and then you find out they're doing it on purpose. I mean, it is unbelievable. Speak to that.
Well, I agree with you. And I think that part of it starts in medical school. I mean, I was just talking to a patient of mine here in the office today, and I was saying that I really believe that when doctors go through medical school now, they go through, they get into their 3rd and 4th years of training. It's all algorithm driven. If not this, then that. Meaning if you have this symptom, you get this test, and if it's positive, you do this. If it's negative, you do this. And it's all algorithm driven. And it's all absolutely as if every single human were a machine that you have to run them through the exact same way. And I believe when you talk about aliens, it's like the only thing that makes sense sometimes is who's inhabiting the brains of the people who are making these decisions? Who's inhabiting the brains of these doctors who can't even begin to connect the dots, who will kick parents out of their practice who don't want to vaccinate? and will absolutely militantly say, you've got to vaccinate, use every vaccine all the time. You know why? Because they're going to get their quarterly bonuses off of it. Whatever happened to the fact we talk about them, they, as if they are, you know, over there and they don't have anything to do with us, but they're humans. They're human beings. It's neighbors doing this to neighbors. It's humans doing it to humans for the sake of what? Money, commerce, profit. Why is it that we're doing this to each other? I mean, it's really a scary thing. We can talk about the people at the very top, the Bilderbergers and the people who make the decisions, but there's millions of people downstream from that who are the actual instrumentations of administering the vaccines and are writing out the prescriptions for the drugs.
Well, you know, for thousands of years in every culture, they've described political awakenings and revolutions as the public woke up. And now in the 21st century and the 20th century, the second half of it, televisions, it takes about 45 minutes with the average adult or child. But once you've learned how to suspend disbelief and go into the hypnotized state, a lower brainwave state, it's a fact. They taught this when I was going to RTF. Then it takes about a minute to switch into it. That's that mind-numbed thing where if I do let my kids watch TV, I can't even shake them out of it. That's why we don't let them watch much of it. And I've talked to sociologists and people, they point out 50 years ago, you'd go around in New York or any other city or town, people were in the street talking, doing things. Parks were always full. Now they're empty, and you look at the high rises of the neighborhoods, it's glowing blue inside as they watch their televisions. So literally, the public is in a trance, and they're always given a cover story. Well, this is why we do this, and the social engineers know exactly what they're doing, and the robber barons made a decision about 130 years ago, and we've shown all the documents in my film Endgame, to set up a world government, start shutting off resources, develop technologies to control populations and reduce population. And they really believe they're doing the right thing. I ran into an animal rights lady when I was on the road. She didn't know who I was. I was talking to her, and she was saying, I think not only should we basically make people get rid of their animals because it's bad for the earth and everything, and but we should also make everybody take an implantation so they can't have kids. And I said, tell me more. And she told me about the foundations she works with and the government and how. And sure, if you're looking at all the unwashed masses and everything, and you're thinking that this water park's too crowded or people have too many tattoos or whatever, it's this elitist attitude. But I always tell them, even if you think you're an elitist, did you get the memo about fluoride in the water? Did you get the memo about mercury in the vaccines? Did you get the memo about GMO? And she's like, no, is it bad for me? And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to be you're not going to be sitting up there, honey, running the levers, doing all this, okay? Because it kind of makes you feel like you're on a power trip or something. This is already being done, okay? And then it gets, and I have you on as a guest, but when I get into this subject, it's one of the areas I have a lot of knowledge, so I want to, to tell the audience what's happening. But just to be brief, and I want your comment on this, and your lengthy comment on it, Doc, because we're running out of time, and I don't want to dominate here. But let's say the Earth's too overpopulated, as the UN is saying right now. It's 7 billion, and it's going to, double by the end of the next century. Their own actuaries say it's going to plane off at 8.5 billion by 2025, and that's private groups have shown that too. Do they understand that the Royal Commission and the CIA Memorandum 200 from 49 and then 73, this is declassified, said if we industrialize the third world, they wouldn't have all these kids. But instead, we're going to let them have all these kids while shutting off their resources so they don't develop. So they actually let everybody have kids, get up to this giant number. And then now we're going to try to soft kill their fertility. I mean, it's really not even a plan by these people. It's more like they like to watch the world burn. Now, what's your view on that?
Oh, gosh, I don't know, Alex. I don't know that I have a specific view on that other than to say that, most parents want to do the right thing for their kids. And what you talked about being in a trance from watching a television, it's pretty easy to put people in a trance. The hard part is to try to wake them up. And I think that we're kind of at a race to the finish line. Are we going to race to the point where we get enough people out there, not only in the U.S. and Canada, but all around the world that are going to wake up and say, I'm mad as hell. I'm not taking it anymore. I'm not taking your vaccines or your drugs. I'm not doing any of that stuff. And we're going to have them wake up and take responsibility instead of abdicating their responsibility to another human standing across the room that happens to be in a white coat. Or are the globalists and the elite people going to win out, and they're going to get enough of us dumbed down by the fluoride in the water and the Prozac in the water and the GMO foods and the infertility things? I mean, it feels like we're in this race to the finish line. But can we get get enough people awake and alert to fight back against a handful of people that seems to be hiding behind the curtains, pulling the levers.
What's the latest on other vaccine news? I mean, is all this mad, I'd say tenfold increase in vaccine propaganda conservatively, is this their desperation as they see people waking up? Because that is happening. I mean, I saw studies just earlier this year we covered where the more educated area of the country you're in, even by county, some areas of Northern California were over 75% unvaccinated. And, they're hyping, oh, my God, the whooping cough, it's going to, get us. But notice, it's the most highly educated. And then I do talk to doctors and scientists now who would have been 5 years ago arrogant, going, yeah, we got to reduce the population. They don't even know the program, but they would still say, well, it sounds like a good idea. They're now scared when I talk to them and basically buying doomsteads all over the country, including a lot of them outside Austin. In fact, there's an article, I think it was in CNN today, why are middle-class people, preparing for the collapse? Because it's not coming, they say. I mean, so clearly the middle-level intelligentsia has woken up. Are you starting to see that?
Oh, absolutely. And I believe that there is a big push. We are absolutely taking the foundational rock out from underneath the entire pharmaceutical industry. I mean, I have said for a long time, Alex, you and I have had these conversations, and I know you say the same thing, that the vaccine industry is the bedrock of the pharmaceutical industry. If the pharmaceutical industry's vision statement, or so I understand it, is that every human on the planet, every man, woman, and child will be on a minimum of one, preferably two, daily prescription medications every day for life. What better way to make that a reality than to start with children and giving them the hepatitis B vaccine and the vitamin K vaccine at birth, and then giving them a series of 40 doses of 16 different vaccines by the time those little bodies are 5 years of age. And there's more and more coming down the pike every single year. There are 330 vaccines in the pipeline right now, and many of them are headed towards adolescence. So for many of your listeners who think, well, I really don't have to make those decisions because my kids are older, guess again. You're going to have to make the decision for adolescents. There are dozens of vaccines headed towards adults. And then someday, hopefully, if you're lucky, you'll have grandchildren. I had somebody post on my Facebook page the other day. It was really good. They said, well, just imagine this, that now when your kids are old enough to get married, you're going to say things like, oh, religion, okay, are they going to be a good companion? Are they on the same economic wavelength? What about education? Oh, is the person that you're dating, have they been vaccinated before? They have? Oh, sorry, I don't want my grandchildren to have all those vaccines in them. We worked very hard to raise you to be an unvaccinated person. And we know that genetically that those vaccines pass down by generations. And so we've created a mess here. We've created a mess. And I think that people need to wake up, more and more need to wake up, get participatory. Your children are inheriting a highly vaccinated population that they are going to have to work to support as they get older. And you need to keep telling all of your friends, family members, and neighbors to stop this travesty. More vaccines are not better. It's a 200-year mistake, and it's not too late to stop.
Well, you're right. It's been going on for more than 200 years, and it's really back to the days of alchemy and extremely dangerous. In fact, there's so many articles coming out. I saw a mainstream article admitting that the people that get measles shots, and I've seen a lot of these, but this was conclusive. I don't have it in the stack, but you may have seen it just like a week ago or so, that people that are getting the measles shot are actually getting the measles at a massively increased level than the general population. Doc, what about the numbers that we've seen in so many cases where the vaccine itself is giving the people of the disease or the problem? I mean, I've seen it in the news every year where the UN gives people polio vaccines, and it gives it to them and kills them. What's happening there?
Well, we still know, and we've known for a very long time, that as we continue to use the oral polio vaccine in third world countries where they have poor sanitation and poor hygiene, we give these kids these oral polio drops that go underneath their tongue, that go into their stool, that goes out into the water, that goes downstream to the next person who drinks out of the water. They get exposed, and then they contract paralysis, and the paralysis that we have come to call polio. We know that I just read a report yesterday about the shingles vaccine, that they're now saying that if adults get the shingle vaccine, and we know that there's going to be kids that are going to get the chickenpox vaccine, they're going to have side effects from it. But if the adults have had the chickenpox or the shingles vaccine, perhaps they can mitigate the side effects from the chickenpox vaccine given to kids. So now we're doing this whole messy thing of vaccinating people to protect other people. We are now creating vaccines because to protect against problems we've caused by vaccines. It is the bedrock of the pharmaceutical industry, Alex. If we pull it out, everything comes down like a house of cards. Why do you think it is that the CDC to this day refuses to do the vaccinated versus unvaccinated kids study?